Hello everyone, my name is Sarafi and I'm happy to meet you all. And today we're going to be talking about Shaddolls. Now, Shaddolls are a deck that I have been dreading making a video on because, well, they're boring. However, I've done my best to try and make this deck more interesting by adding some synchro elements to it. One of the problems that Shaddolls genuinely have is that their best monster is Shaddoll Windy, which is a wind monster, and therefore you use it to make El Shaddoll Wendigo, and El Shaddoll Wendigo is terrible. It's a terrible card, it doesn't do anything, terrible stats, but it does let you send Wendy to the graveyard, so you have to play it. So, we use the fact that Wendigo is a level 6 monster with the fact that Falco is a level 2 tuner to make some Synchro 8s. And that makes the deck more interesting, it gives it more power and more flexibility, and it's a lot of fun. So the skill is called Shadow Weaving Power. At the beginning of the duel, add 1 El Shaddoll Winda to your extra deck. Also add 3 Shaddoll Fusions and 1 Shaddoll Schism to your deck. You can only special summon Shaddoll monsters during this duel, excluding special summons from the extra deck, and once per duel, you can return 1 Shaddoll monster in your graveyard or among your banished cards to your deck or extra deck. Great. That means our actual deck size is 25, because we have 21 cards and we're adding 4 more cards. Not the most consistent deck in the world, but you do have a lot of mill, so let's take a look at the cards. For the main deck, we are playing Riliona, the Magistus of Vere. This is a light monster, and when she's normal summon, you add a Magistus spell or trap from your deck to your hand, which will be your copy of Magistus Invocation, which allows you to immediately fusion summon. So you use Riliona, who is a light monster, with any of your Shaddolls to make El Shaddoll Construct, which allows you to send Schism to the graveyard, link El Shaddoll Construct off for Gravity Controller, and then return Schism from your graveyard to your hand, so that you can immediately set up to mess with your opponent during their turn. That's kind of your turn 1 play. If you have 3 Rilionas, I recommend running her at 3. I only have 2. Shaddoll Wendy. If this card is flipped or sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can special summon 1 Shaddoll monster from your deck in face down defense position, except Wendy. You can only use 1 Shaddoll effect per turn for each of these cards. Wendy is what we use to kind of set up a board on our side of the field. We will usually special summon Hell Shaddoll Hollow with her. Hell Shaddoll Hollow has 2,900 defense points, and when it's flipped face up, you can target 1 face up monster your opponent controls, send 1 Shaddoll monster with the same attribute from your extra deck to the graveyard, and if you do, banish that monster. We have light, fire, and wind monsters, and dark monsters in our extra deck. So we can hit 4 different attributes, and the monster's stats are pretty good as well. So this is a good card. If it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect before it's flipped face up, you can send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard equals the number of different original attributes on the field. So that allows you to trigger a bunch of Shaddoll effects in your graveyard, which is pretty nice. This is a good card. We only needed it 1. Shaddoll Dragon. If this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target 1 spell or trap on the field and destroy it. This is a card that we will usually send to the graveyard with our Sinister Shadow games to try and clear our opponent's back row. If it's flipped face up, we can target 1 card our opponent controls and bounce it. That's pretty nice. Shaddoll Squamata. If this card is flipped face up, you can target 1 monster on the field and destroy it. This is another great target for Wendy to special summon from the deck. If it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can send 1 Shaddoll card from your deck to the graveyard, except Squamata. That's nice if you happen to play El Shaddoll Fusion on Squamata, so that's kind of one of the reasons that we're playing this card at 3. It's a good fusion material card. It allows you to get whatever you need sent to the graveyard so that you can trigger some effects, and it's got a pretty nice flip effect as well. Shaddoll Hedgehog. If this card is flipped face up, you can add 1 Shaddoll spell or trap from your deck to your hand. So if we don't have any fusion spells left, we can special summon this card with Wendy and then get our Shaddoll Fusion. If this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can add 1 Shaddoll monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use 1 effect per turn, obviously. This card's okay, but we're only playing it at 1 because we only really need to search so often. Shaddoll Falco, we have to run at 3 because we need the tuner. It's a level 2 tuner, and if it's flipped face up, you can target 1 Shaddoll monster in your graveyard except Falco and special summon it in face down defense position. If it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can special summon it in face down defense position. So, this is a great card to mill off of Hell Shaddoll Hollow because it will immediately get you a body on the field. And it's a great card to use to fusion summon with Wendy because then you can just set the Falco face down and then next turn the Wendigo can be used as synchro material. So getting the tuner, getting the ability to revive the Hell Shaddoll from the graveyard is pretty nice. Don't sleep on this card. El Shaddoll Fusion, quick play spell. Fusion summon one Shaddoll Fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or side of the field as fusion materials, only once per turn. Being able to fusion summon as a quick effect is a great effect because you can use it basically to dodge removal, and you can also use it to get additional attacks in the battle phase. This card's great, and you should run it at 3. Sinister Shadow Games, send one Shaddoll card from your deck to the graveyard, then you can change any number of face-down Shaddoll monsters you control to face-up defense position. Being able to trigger your flip effects during your opponent's turn is pretty good, and also being able to send a specific card from your deck to the graveyard is very nice. Like I said, we can use Dragon to pop a spell or trap, which is pretty good. You'll see that in the replays. For the extra deck, we have El Shaddoll Construct. It requires a Shaddoll monster and a light monster. Must first be fusion summoned. If this card is special summoned, you can send one Shaddoll card from your deck to the graveyard. At the start of the damage step, if this card battles a special summon monster, destroy that monster. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one Shaddoll spell or trap in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So we fusion summon this card, we mill Schism, we link it off for Gravity Controller, we get the Schism back, then we use the skill to put the construct back in our extra deck so that we can make it again. The effect to destroy a special summon monster when it battles is not optional, and it is also not once per turn. So if you attack a monster that was special summoned and it only has 200 attack points, too bad, you're not dealing any damage. This is a great card. We only have space to run it at 2. I would run it at 3 if I had more space in the extra deck, but I don't. El Shaddoll Grista. This requires a Shaddoll monster and a fire monster. It has 2450 attack points and 1950 defense points. Must first be fusion summoned, and during either player's turn, when your opponent would special summon a monster while you have a Shaddoll card in your hand, you can negate the summon, and if you do, destroy that monster. Then send one Shaddoll card from your hand to the graveyard. You can only use this effect once per turn. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one Shaddoll spell or trap in your graveyard and add it to your hand. This counters all Xyz, Link, and Synchro summons. That's fantastic. Use it against Link, Synchro, and Xyz players, and you'll win the game. El Shaddoll Wendigo requires a Shaddoll monster and a wind monster. Must first be fusion summoned. During either player's turn, you can target one monster you control. This turn, it cannot be destroyed by battle with an opponent's special summoned monster. Hard once per turn on that effect. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a Shaddoll spell or trap in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So, use this card to send Wendy to the graveyard, activate Wendy's effect to get some cards on the field, then synchro it with Falco, get a good card. And return a spell card from your graveyard to your hand. Draco Berserker, the Tinny, 3000 attack. If your opponent activates a monster effect, you can banish it. If it destroys an effect monster in battle, it gains their attack points permanently and then can attack another monster. Great card. Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend. This card's name becomes Red Dragon Archfiend while it is on the field or in the graveyard. Once per turn, you can destroy as many special summoned effect monsters on the field with less attack than this card, other than this card, and if you do, inflict 250 damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed. It is important to note that if a monster is special summoned face down, your attack points are not known, which means that Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend cannot destroy them. So this is a one-sided board wipe. We will pop all of our opponent's monsters while all of our monsters stay on the field because they're face down. Great card. Void Ogre Dragon requires a Dark Tuner, which Falco is. Once per turn during either player's turn, when you have no cards in your hand and your opponent activates a spell trap, you can negate the activation and destroy it. 3000 attack, 3000 defense. Really good card. Make it when you have no cards left and you'll win the game. Gravity Controller. One non-link monster in an extra monster zone. Cannot be used as link material determined as link summon. This card in the extra monster zone cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster in the main monster zone. At the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster in the extra monster zone, you can return both that opponent's monster and this card to the deck. This card is an out to Leo Dancer, but otherwise it is a very bad card. Having a monster that cannot be destroyed by battle with only 1000 attack points that you can't switch to defense position is very bad, and there's not a whole lot of ways to get Gravity Controller off the field once it's on the field. Basically, the only way you can do it is by using Schism to make Winda. I have lost the game because of this card. It is a card that's very easy to exploit. There are a lot of decks that use main deck monsters to beat people up now. Kaijus, Machina, and even if the monster doesn't have 3000 attack points, taking 800 4 times is still going to hurt. So the fact that you have monsters in the main monster zone, and you can play extra deck monsters in the main monster zone as well. It's only the extra monster zone that causes a problem. You have to be very careful with this card. It's kind of a card that is really good to make when you're going second, but when you're going first, it's just a huge risk. But it's an easy way to send Construct to the graveyard, so it's still in the extra deck, and just be really careful with this card. Okay, let's take a look at the replay. So we are going first against Dark Magician, and we have no monsters in our hand. So we summon Rilliona, we draw our Invocation, and we pass. It's our opponent's turn. They activate Dark Magical Circle. we activate Sinister Shadow Games and send the dragon. Now, the problem is Sinister Shadow Games is part of the chain, and dragon goes to the graveyard. Dragon's effect triggers outside the chain, so we can't just pop the Dark Magical Circle to prevent the draw. The opponent does get to draw the Eternal Soul, but then we will immediately pop it afterwards. Opponent normal summons Magician's Rod to draw Magician's Navigation. Discard Navigation to special summon Apprentice's Illusion Magician, draw Dark Magician. Discard Dark Magician to special summon another Apprentice's Illusion Magician and draw Dark Magician. Then the opponent is sets 2 and they try to go to the battle phase. I activate Shaddoll Schism in response. I banish the Vere from my field and the dragon from my graveyard to fusion summon the El Shaddoll Construct. It's a light monster. My opponent's monsters are all dark, so I don't get to send anything to the graveyard. Shaddoll Construct, mill the Wendy, and that lets us special summon Hollow from our deck face down. My opponent is then going to stop their attempt to go into the battle phase and link into Bujinki Ahashima with their 2 level 6s. Bujinki Ahashima special summons Dark Magician from the graveyard and Dark Magician from the hand, then immediately exceeds it into a rank 7, which is number 11, Big Eye. Big Eye takes the construct, and then Ahashima's effect activates to destroy the construct, to destroy the schism. El Shaddoll Construct attacks Hell Shaddoll Hollow. Hell Shaddoll Hollow was special summoned, so before it's even flipped face up, El Shaddoll Construct destroys it. That's very unfortunate for us. Hell Shaddoll Hollow's flip effect does not activate. Instead, its graveyard effect activates, and it sends cards from the top of the deck to the graveyard equal to the number of attributes on the field. There's dark and light, so we mill 2. One of them is Falco. Falco special summons itself, and the opponent ends their turn. I assume they just don't want to trigger the effect to special summon monsters from the graveyard because they don't want us to get Hell Shaddoll Hollow back because they can't beat over it. But of course, Falco's effect is you can only use 1 effect per turn and only once that turn. So if they had attacked into Falco, it would have not triggered its effect and they would have been able to attack us directly for quite a bit of damage. They don't do that though. So we flip the Falco face up, we special summon the Wendy from face down, then we activate Shaddoll Fusion. We're going to send another Wendy from our deck to the graveyard along with Shaddoll Dragon to fusion summon Wendigo. Dragon effect, we get to pop one of the face down cards, and Wendy effect to special summon. Special summon the Squamana. We destroy the Eternal Soul, that's really good. Now, level 2 Tuner and the level 6 non-tuner Synchro Summon. Go into the Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend. Red Dragon Archfiend effect. We get the Schism back, and then we pop everything. The opponent takes 750 damage because they lost 3 monsters, and then we get to immediately activate El Shaddoll Construct's effect to return the Shaddoll Fusion from our graveyard to our hand. Then we can activate the Invocation that we added last turn to make Winda, and the opponent concedes at this point because they have been overwhelmed. There you go. So, Shaddolls are able to special summon during the opponent's turn quite frequently. They are able to pop spell cards with ease, and they are able to fusion summon repeatedly. Even if their fusions aren't that good, you can use tuner monsters to make synchro monsters that are better. My name is Sarafi, and I was thrilled to have all of you with me.